The Galactic Coalition had existed for 3,000 years in relative peace. 14 different species lived together, traded with each other, and helped one another when problems arose. Their space stations floated peacefully among the stars. Their cargo ships moved freely between worlds. Children of different species played together on colony planets. War was something they read about in ancient history books, a primitive concept from a barbaric past. Then the Vraxil came. Nobody knew where they originated. Some scientists thought they came from the galactic core. Others believed they had been drifting through dark space for millennia, searching for new feeding grounds. It didn't matter. What mattered was that they were here and they were hungry. The Vraxil looked like massive insects, but calling them insects was like calling a tsunami a wave. They stood 12 feet tall, covered in black chitinous armor that could withstand most coalition weapons. Their ships were grown rather than built, massive organic constructs that pulsed with bioluminescent light. They didn't negotiate. They didn't communicate beyond simple threat displays. They simply consumed everything in their path. The first colony to fall was Haven's Rest, a peaceful farming world home to 4 million Thessans. The Vraxil arrived without warning. Their bioships descended through the atmosphere and released swarms of smaller creatures. Within 6 hours, every living thing on the planet was dead or captured. The Coalition sent a relief fleet. It arrived to find the planet stripped bare, the oceans drained, the atmosphere toxic. The Vraxil had moved on, leaving behind a dead rock. More worlds fell. The Coalition military responded, but their ships were designed for patrol duty and pirate suppression, not full-scale warfare. Their weapons were meant to disable, not destroy. Their tactics focused on minimal casualties and quick surrenders. The Vraxil had no such limitations. In the Battle of Kelris Station, the Coalition lost 73 ships. The Vraxil lost 5. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. At this rate, the Coalition would be extinct within 2 years. Ambassador Kelith of the Thessan Union stood before the Coalition Council on Horizon's Gate, the neutral station where all major decisions were made. His people had been the first to suffer. 3 of their worlds were gone. Another 5 were under siege. Billions of his kind were dead or missing. "We are losing this war," Kelith said, his voice steady despite his grief. "Our fleets are shattered. Our colonies are falling. We need help from outside the Coalition." The council chamber fell silent. Seeking outside help was unprecedented. The Coalition had always been self-sufficient, proud of their ability to solve their own problems. But pride meant nothing to the dead. Ambassador Vorath of the Kellen hierarchy rose to speak. He was a tall being with 4 eyes and mandibles that clicked when he was nervous. They were clicking now. "There is one species we have not contacted. The humans of Sol System. They achieved faster than light travel 40 years ago. Why haven't we contacted them before?" asked Councillor Moren, a small reptilian being from the eastern sectors. Vorath's mandibles clicked faster. "Because we were afraid of them. Their entire history is nothing but warfare. In 10,000 years of recorded civilization, they have never had a single year of complete peace. They have fought wars over resources, over beliefs, over invisible lines on their planet's surface. They have 27 different words for armed conflict in their primary language. They teach their children about military strategy through games. Their most celebrated literature glorifies combat and sacrifice in battle." "They sound barbaric," said another counselor. "They are barbaric," Vorath agreed, "but they are also the most militarily experienced species we know of. While we were building gardens, they were building weapons. While we were writing poetry, they were perfecting tactics. While we were celebrating peace, they were preparing for the next war." Kelith listened to the debate with growing frustration. Finally, he stood again. "I don't care if they are barbaric. I don't care if they frighten us. My people are dying. If the humans can help us survive, then we must ask them. Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford." The vote was close, but it passed. The Coalition would send an envoy to Earth. 3 days later, a small diplomatic vessel entered the Sol system. It was a beautiful system, the envoy noted. A yellow star with 8 planets and countless smaller bodies. The 3rd planet from the sun was the human homeworld. Blue and green and white, it looked peaceful from space. Sensors showed massive cities, extensive agriculture, and a surprisingly healthy ecosystem for a species with advanced technology. The envoy broadcast a message on all frequencies, using the translation protocols they had developed from studying human communications. "Greetings from the Galactic Coalition. We come in peace and friendship. We face a grave threat and request military assistance. Please respond. The response came within 3 hours. A calm human voice speaking clear, precise language. This is Earth Unified Defense Council. We have received your message. We are aware of the Vraxil threat through our long-range monitoring systems. We agree to provide military assistance. Please transmit tactical data on all Vraxil encounters. We will deploy appropriate forces within 1 week. The envoy felt overwhelming relief. 1 week, they could hold out for 1 week. The message was transmitted back to the Coalition Council with great joy. Help was coming. The humans would send ships to reinforce their battered fleets. Maybe 50 ships. Maybe even 100 if they were generous. On Earth, the message was received very differently. The President of Earth's unified government addressed the Global Assembly. The Galactic Coalition has requested military assistance against an aggressive alien species. This species has committed genocide against multiple worlds. They represent a clear and present danger not just to the Coalition, but potentially to humanity itself. I'm asking this assembly to authorize total war mobilization. The debate lasted 4 hours. Representatives from every nation spoke. Some urged caution. Others demanded immediate action. But when the vote came, it was unanimous. Humanity would go to war. Within hours, the military machinery of an entire species began to move. Shipyards that had been building cargo vessels switched to warship production. Factories retooled for weapons manufacturing. Research facilities redirected their efforts toward military applications. 3 million volunteers signed up for the military in the first day alone. Fleet Admiral Kate Morrison received her orders personally from the Defense Council. Take the 2nd Expeditionary Force to Coalition space. Assess the situation. Eliminate the threat. You have full authorization for any level of force you deem necessary. Morrison saluted. Understood. We'll show them what humans can do. The Admiral had no way of knowing that her orders would terrify the very people she was sent to help. The Tarsus system was dying. 4 million colonists huddled in underground shelters, while Vraxil bioships circled overhead like vultures. The Coalition had sent every available ship to defend the system, but it wasn't enough. 16 Coalition vessels faced over 100 Vraxil attackers. The mathematics were simple and brutal. Admiral Khalith stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Starfire, and watched his fleet fall apart. 2 more ships had gone dark in the last hour. The shields on his own vessel were down to 40%. They had maybe 6 hours before the defensive line collapsed completely. After that, the colonists below would be helpless, sir. We're detecting slipstream signatures, called out his sensor officer, a young Kellen named Vriss. Multiple contacts emerging behind our position. Khalith felt a surge of hope. The humans had arrived. Finally, some reinforcement. How many ships? Vriss stared at her console, her 4 eyes blinking rapidly. Sir, I'm reading 412 contacts. No, wait, 618. Sir, they're still coming. Still coming. Khalith moved to the sensor station. The display showed space itself tearing open as ships poured through. Massive vessels bristling with weapons. Sleek destroyers moving in perfect formation. Carrier groups surrounded by clouds of smaller craft. The numbers kept climbing. 1,000 ships. 2,000. 3,000. Final count, Vriss whispered. 3,746 vessels. Sir, this is impossible. No species has this many warships. A communication channel opened. A human woman appeared on the main screen. She had short dark hair, sharp features, and eyes that seemed to calculate everything they saw. Her uniform was crisp and dark blue, with more insignia than Calith could count. This is Fleet Admiral Kate Morrison of the United Earth Defense Fleet, 2nd Expeditionary Force. We have reviewed your tactical data and current situation. The Vraxil position is unacceptable. Stand by for immediate engagement. Khalith found his voice. This is Admiral Keyleth. We are grateful for your assistance, Admiral Morrison. Perhaps we should coordinate our defensive positions and— Coordination can wait, Morrison interrupted. Her tone was not rude, just absolutely certain. We are weapons free in 90 seconds. Keep your ships clear of the combat zone. The channel closed. Khalith watched in shock as the human fleet began to move. They weren't taking defensive positions. They weren't forming a shield wall. They were accelerating directly toward the Vraxil swarm at speeds that made his sensors scream warnings. They're going to collide, Vriss said. Sir, they're not slowing down. This is suicide. The Vraxil seemed to think the same thing. Their bioships surged forward to meet the human fleet, probably expecting easy prey. The two forces rushed toward each other across the black ocean of space. Then the humans opened fire. Khalith had been in 17 major engagements since the war began. He thought he understood space combat. He was wrong. The human ships unleashed weapons that defied his understanding of warfare. Railguns fired solid slugs at speeds approaching light itself. When they hit Vraxil bioships, the targets simply exploded into clouds of organic debris. There was no gradual damage, no shield degradation. One moment a ship existed, the next moment it was gone. Missile swarms launched from human cruisers, thousands of projectiles filling space like a metal storm. Each missile tracked independently, adjusting course to follow fleeing Vraxil ships. When they impacted, they didn't just damage armor. They burrowed inside and detonated, tearing their targets apart from within. Energy weapons lanced through the darkness, beams of concentrated power that burned through Vraxil shields as if they weren't there. The beams didn't just penetrate. They caused some kind of feedback that made the shields themselves explode, destroying nearby systems. "Sir," Briss's voice was shaking. "They just launched nuclear weapons. Inside the combat zone, they're going to irradiate everything." Khalith watched in horror as bright stars bloomed among the fleets. Nuclear fire washed over human and Vraxil ships alike. The difference was that human vessels had shields designed to withstand atomic weapons. The Vraxil did not. Dozens of bioships died in each blast. The human fighter craft were even more terrifying. Small one-person vessels darted through the chaos like predatory fish. They moved with impossible agility, dodging Vraxil plasma fire and returning with precise bursts that found weak points in enemy armor. The pilots flew with a recklessness that suggested they valued victory over survival. "They're not trying to win," Khalith breathed. "They're trying to annihilate." His tactical officer, Commander Sorath, nodded slowly. "Sir, the Vraxil are breaking formation. They're attempting to retreat." For the first time in the entire war, the Vraxil were running, but the humans weren't letting them go. Destroyers pursued bioships that tried to flee, hunting them down one by one. Fighter squadrons chased individual Vraxil vessels across the system, following them until they were destroyed or dead in space. The Battle of Tarsus lasted 43 minutes. Over 100 Vraxil bioships were destroyed. Human casualties were 23 wounded and 0 killed. Not one human ship was destroyed. Admiral Morrison's face reappeared on Khalith's screen. She looked completely calm, as if she had just finished a routine patrol rather than the most one-sided battle in modern history. "Admiral Khalith, the Tarsus system is secure. We will leave a defensive group here to ensure the Vraxil do not return. 1,200 ships should be sufficient." Khalith stared at her. 1,200 ships? "Admiral, that's more vessels than our entire military had before the war began. You're leaving that many just to defend one system?" "Standard defensive deployment," Morrison replied. "We need to ensure the civilian population is completely safe." "Is there a problem?" No problem," Khalith said weakly. "Admiral, we cannot thank you enough. You saved 4 million lives today." Morrison's expression softened slightly. "That's what we came here to do, Admiral. Now please transmit coordinates of all known Vraxil positions, staging areas, and supply routes. The rest of my fleet will be moving to eliminate those targets." "Moving to eliminate," Khalith repeated. "Admiral, surely you don't mean to attack all of those positions?" "Some of them are heavily fortified. They would require months of siege warfare." "Months?" Morrison looked genuinely confused. "Admiral, we plan to clear all Vraxil positions within 30 days. Siege warfare is inefficient. We prefer overwhelming force followed by rapid exploitation." The channel closed, leaving Khalith staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew sat in stunned silence. Finally, Vriss spoke. "Sir, I don't think we understand what humans are." "No," Khalith agreed. "I don't think we do. Ambassador Vorath tried to warn us. Humans don't just fight wars, they execute them." Commander Sorath pulled up a tactical display showing human fleet movements. The massive armada was already splitting into battle groups, each one heading toward a different Vraxil position. "Sir, they brought 3,000 ships in response to our call for assistance. This can't be their entire military." "No," Khalith said quietly. "I suspect this is just the beginning. We asked for allies. We thought we would get friends who would stand beside us. Instead, we got something else entirely." "What did we get?" asked Vriss. Khalith watched the human ships disappear into slipstream jumps, heading toward enemy positions with the certainty of apex predators stalking prey. "We got humanity. And I'm not sure the galaxy is ready for what that means. On the Titan's Reach, Admiral Morrison reviewed casualty reports with her staff. 23 wounded, all expected to make full recoveries. It could have been worse. It should have been worse. But humans had been perfecting the art of warfare for 10,000 years. They knew how to fight. Admiral, we're receiving communication requests from Coalition leadership, reported her communications officer, Lieutenant Danny Hughes. They want to discuss strategy and coordination. Morrison nodded. Schedule a meeting for 6 hours from now. That should give us time to hit the Vraxil staging area in the Kelton system. After they see what we can do there, they'll understand why coordination isn't necessary. Yes, ma'am, Hughes said. Admiral, if I may ask, are we really leaving 1,200 ships here? Of course, Morrison replied. Those colonists suffered enough. They deserve to know they're safe. 1,200 ships ensure that safety. Hughes smiled. The Coalition is going to realize they didn't just get military assistance. They got adopted by humanity. Morrison allowed herself a small smile. Let them realize it slowly. No point in terrifying them all at once. The meeting took place aboard the Titan's Reach, the human command ship that served as Admiral Morrison's mobile headquarters. The ship itself was larger than most Coalition stations. It housed 15,000 crew members, had its own internal gravity systems, and contained enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The Coalition delegates felt very small walking through its corridors. Ambassador Kaleth led the delegation, accompanied by Ambassador Vorath and Counselor Maren. They were escorted by human Marines in powered armor, soldiers who stood 7 feet tall in their mechanical suits and carried weapons that looked like they could punch through starship hulls. The Marines were polite but silent, their faces hidden behind dark visors. The briefing room was stark and functional. No decorations, no comfort, just tactical displays and hard chairs. Commander Jack Hayes waited for them, a human male with gray hair and visible cybernetic implants along his jaw and neck. He looked like someone who had been rebuilt after being broken. Thank you for coming, Hayes said, gesturing to chairs. We need to discuss how we're going to end this war. End it? Vorath said carefully. Commander, we appreciate your confidence, but the Vraxil are spread across 40 star systems. They have millions of warriors and hundreds of bioships still operational. This war could last years. Hayes pulled up a holographic star map. Red markers showed Vraxil positions. Blue markers showed human fleet deployments. There were far more blue markers than red. Ambassador, with respect, this war will be over in 30 days. We're not here to fight the Vraxil. We're here to eliminate them as a threat. There's a difference. I don't understand, Keyleth admitted. Hayes changed the display to show a typical Coalition battle. This is how you fight. You establish defensive positions, minimize your casualties, attempt diplomatic contact even during combat, and seek negotiated surrenders. You fight like you're afraid of war. The display changed again, showing the Battle of Tarsus from multiple angles. This is how humans fight. We don't establish defensive positions. We attack. We don't minimize casualties. We inflict maximum casualties on the enemy, while protecting our own through overwhelming force. We don't negotiate during combat. We destroy the enemy's ability and will to fight. Then we negotiate from a position of absolute strength. That seems excessive, Mrin said quietly. Excessive would be losing, Hayes replied. You asked for help. You got humanity. Let me explain what that means. He pulled up new tactical displays showing Vraxil infrastructure. We've spent the last week mapping every Vraxil position in known space. 17 major staging grounds, 42 supply routes, 63 forward operating bases, and their breeding worlds. Hayes zoomed in on 3 planets deep in what used to be Vraxil-controlled space. These are where they reproduce. Each world can produce millions of Vraxil over a few months. As long as these worlds exist, the Vraxil can replace their losses faster than you can inflict them. That's why you were losing. What do you intend to do? Vorath asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. We're going to hit every single one of these targets simultaneously, Hayes said calmly. Every staging ground, every supply route, every base, and every breeding world. We're going to destroy their entire military and industrial infrastructure in a single coordinated strike. The Coalition delegates sat in stunned silence. Finally, Kaleth spoke. Commander, that would require hundreds of thousands of ships. The coordination alone would be... We have 240,000 ships in this sector, Hayes interrupted. Admiral Lisa Grant is bringing the Third Fleet from Sol, another 300,000 vessels. We've been building ships for 6 weeks straight. Our entire industrial economy is now focused on war production. Your entire economy? Maren whispered. You've militarized your whole civilization? Yes, Hayes said simply. When Earth's government received your distress call, our president addressed the global assembly. The vote for total war authorization passed unanimously in 4 hours. Every nation agreed. Every political faction united. Humanity doesn't do anything halfway, Counselor. We never have. A new human entered the room. Commander Ryan Palmer, head of Special Operations. He was younger than Hayes, but had the same hard look in his eyes. We've also prepared contingency plans, Palmer said. If the Vraxil don't surrender after we destroy their infrastructure, we'll move to Phase 2. What is Phase 2? Asked Forath carefully. Complete elimination, Palmer replied. We'll target their homeworld directly. Orbital bombardment of all population centers. If they continue to resist after that, we'll sterilize the entire planet. Khalith felt his blood run cold. You can't be serious. That's genocide. No, Palmer corrected. Genocide is what the Vraxil tried to do to your people. This is war. The Vraxil are an existential threat to every peaceful species in this region of space. Existential threats don't get second chances. Hayes pulled up another display, this one showing Earth's history. Battles, wars, conflicts stretching back thousands of years. Let me tell you about humanity, ambassadors. We spent 10,000 years fighting ourselves. We developed weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We fought wars that killed hundreds of millions of our own people. We created philosophies of warfare, studied the art of conflict, and passed down military knowledge through generations. The display showed human weapons development, from simple clubs to nuclear bombs to the relativistic weapons that now armed human warships. We did all of this because we had no choice. On Earth, if you couldn't fight, you died. If your tribe, your nation, your civilization couldn't defend itself, it was destroyed. So we learned. We got very, very good at killing. You're monsters, Forath said softly. Hayes shrugged. Maybe, but we're your monsters now. And here's what that means for the Vraxil. He pulled up a new display showing projected battle outcomes. In 30 days, the Vraxil will have lost 70% of their military capability. In 60 days, they'll have lost 90%. By day 90, they will either surrender unconditionally or cease to exist as a species. Those are the only 2 options we're giving them. Commander Palmer stepped forward. We've also analyzed Vraxil tactics and biology. They're not actually that dangerous. They just seem dangerous to species that haven't fought real wars in thousands of years. To humans, they're just another enemy. We've faced worse from ourselves. The coalition delegates exchanged glances. Khalith finally spoke. Commander Hayes, I need to ask you something directly. Do you feel any hesitation about what you're planning to do? Any doubt? Hayes met his eyes steadily. Ambassador, my species has fought wars for resources, for ideology, for religion, for territory. And sometimes just because we hated each other. We've burned cities, destroyed cultures, and killed millions. But we learned something important from all that blood and horror. The fastest way to end a war is to win it so decisively that the enemy never wants to fight again. That's what we're going to do here. What if the Vraxil are just acting on instinct? Maren asked. What if they can't help being what they are? Then they're incompatible with civilization, Palmer replied. And civilization takes priority. We didn't come this far as a species by tolerating existential threats. Neither will you if you survive long enough. Admiral Morrison entered the room, her presence immediately commanding attention. Gentlemen, I've reviewed the tactical situation. We'll begin Operation Clean Sweep in 72 hours. All human fleets will move to their assigned positions. The coalition forces are welcome to observe, but please stay clear of combat zones. We don't want any friendly fire incidents. Admiral, Forath said, what you're describing is total war. Complete annihilation of an enemy species. Yes, Morrison agreed. Is there a problem? It's terrifying. Morrison's expression softened slightly. Ambassador, I understand your concern. Your species have enjoyed peace for a long time. You've forgotten what war really means. But humanity hasn't. We know exactly what war means. And we're willing to bear that burden so you don't have to. She pulled up a final display showing Earth's military production. Shipyards working around the clock. Factories producing weapons and armor. Training facilities churning out soldiers. This is what a militarized civilization looks like. We have converted 70% of our economy to war production. Our scientists are competing to design better weapons. Our engineers are building ships faster than you can count them. Our soldiers are volunteering by the millions. This is what we do. This is what we're good at. You're good at destruction, Keyleth said quietly. Yes, Morrison agreed. But we're very selective about what we destroy. The Vraxel made the mistake of threatening innocent people. They made the mistake of committing genocide. They made the mistake of thinking they could do these things without consequences. Now they're going to learn what happens when humanity decides something needs to end. The meeting concluded shortly after. The coalition delegates returned to their ships, their minds reeling from what they had learned. Humanity wasn't just militarily superior. They were philosophically committed to total victory. They didn't fight wars to gain advantage. They fought wars to eliminate threats permanently. On the Titan's Reach, Commander Hayes reviewed the Operation Clean Sweep plans one final time. Everything was ready. The fleets were. Operation Clean Sweep began at exactly 600 Universal Time. Across 40 star systems, human battle groups dropped out of Slipstream and immediately engaged their targets. There was no warning, no declaration of war, no ultimatum. The humans simply arrived and began destroying everything the Vraxel had built. Captain Ben Tyler commanded Battle Group 7, assigned to eliminate Vraxel Station Prime. The station was massive, a bioorganic structure that served as a regional command hub for Vraxel forces. Intelligence suggested over 50,000 Vraxel warriors were stationed there, along with defensive weapons capable of destroying entire fleets. All ships. This is Tyler. The captain spoke calmly into the fleet-wide channel. Weapons free. Target priority is command and control, then power generation, then life support. Leave nothing functional. Execute. His ship, the UES Retribution, opened fire first. The Dreadnought's main railguns fired solid slugs the size of buses at a significant fraction of light speed. Station Prime's shields absorbed the first volley, but the second volley broke through. The third volley punched massive holes through the station's organic hull. Missile cruisers followed up with coordinated strikes. Thousands of missiles swarmed toward the wounded station, each one seeking weak points in the armor. When they hit, they burrowed deep before detonating. Internal explosions rippled through Station Prime's structure. Vraxel bioships scrambled to defend their station, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. Tyler's battle group consisted of 300 ships, all of them designed for combat. The Vraxel defenders numbered less than 40. "Red Squadron, take those cruisers," called out Lieutenant Amy Foster over the fighter channel. "Blue Squadron, intercept those fighters before they reach our carriers. Stay tight and watch your vectors." Foster led her squadron through the chaos with practiced ease. Her fighter was small and fast, armed with plasma cannons and guided missiles. She had been flying combat missions for 3 years, since the day she turned 18 and enlisted. War was all she knew, and she was very good at it. A Vraxel biofighter tried to lock onto her with some kind of organic tracking system. Foster rolled her fighter 90 degrees and fired her thrusters, changing direction so fast that the G-forces would have killed her without her flight suit's protection. The Vraxel fighter couldn't match the maneuver. Foster came around behind it and fired a 3-second burst from her plasma cannons. The enemy fighter exploded. "Splash 1, Foster reported. "Blue 3, you've got 2 on your tail. Break left and I'll clean them up." "Copy, Blue Leader." Breaking left. The battle lasted 42 minutes. Station Prime broke apart under sustained bombardment, its organic structure unable to withstand the massive damage. 17,000 Vraxel died. Human casualties were 23 wounded, 0 killed. It was a pattern that repeated across all 17 targeted staging areas. In the Keltor system, Admiral Greg Sullivan commanded the assault on a major Vraxel breeding facility. The planet below was covered in massive biodomes where the Vraxel grew their young in accelerated incubation chambers. Intelligence suggested this single world could produce 5 million Vraxel warriors every 6 months. "Begin orbital bombardment," Sullivan ordered. "Kinetic strikes on all biodome structures. I want that planet sterilized." Kinetic bombardment was an old tactic, simple but devastating. Solid tungsten rods were dropped from orbit, accelerating to tremendous speeds before impact. They carried no explosives. They didn't need them. The kinetic energy alone was equivalent to small nuclear weapons. The rods fell like rain. Each impact created a crater hundreds of meters wide and destroyed everything within a kilometer. The biodomes, grown from organic material over decades, shattered like eggs. Within 2 hours, the surface of the planet was transformed into a scorched wasteland. "Sir, we're detecting Vraxil evacuation craft trying to leave the planet," reported Commander Pete Morris, Sullivan's operations officer. "Destroy them," Sullivan said without hesitation. "Nothing leaves that planet alive." Human destroyers intercepted the fleeing craft and eliminated them with precise fire. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Similar scenes played out across Vraxil-controlled space. Supply convoys were hunted down and destroyed. Forward operating bases were reduced to debris fields. Defensive positions were overwhelmed by sheer numbers and superior firepower. The Vraxil, for the first time in their existence, were being systematically exterminated. On the Titan's reach, Admiral Morrison watched the tactical displays with professional satisfaction. Every target was being eliminated on schedule. Casualties were minimal. The operation was proceeding exactly as planned. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Vraxil Command," reported Lieutenant Danny Hughes. "They're asking for negotiations." "Tell them we'll negotiate after they surrender unconditionally," Morrison replied. "Not before." "Yes, ma'am." Commander Jack Hayes entered the command center reviewing casualty reports on a datapad. "We've lost 2 ships in the Colaris assault. Destroyer UES Vigilant and frigate UES Steadfast. 73 crew members killed. Another 12 ships have sustained damage but remain operational." Morrison nodded grimly. Every death hurt, but war was never bloodless. "Make sure their families are notified. And put both ships in for fleet commendations. I want their sacrifice remembered." "Already done, ma'am." The operation continued for 3 more days. Human forces moved through Vraxil space like a scythe through wheat, cutting down everything in their path. The Vraxil tried to regroup, tried to form defensive lines, tried to fight back. Nothing worked. The humans were simply too numerous, too well-equipped, and too experienced at warfare. On the 4th day, Vraxil forces began retreating toward the Kalar Nebula, a massive cloud of gas and dust that interfered with sensors. Intelligence suggested they were gathering their remaining forces for a final stand. Approximately 8,000 bioships, the last major concentration of Vraxil military power. Admiral Morrison reviewed the tactical situation with her senior staff. "They're trying to make us come to them in the nebula where our sensor advantage is reduced. Seems like a reasonable strategy," Commander Hayes observed. "Except we're not going to play by their rules." "No," Morrison agreed. "We're going to send in the 5th Fleet with overwhelming force. I want them destroyed completely." "Admiral," Hayes said carefully, "we could also deploy the Nova weapons, and this decisively." Morrison considered this. Nova weapons were humanity's most terrible creation, devices designed to destabilize stars and trigger premature supernovas. They had been developed as a final deterrent, a weapon so destructive that even humans hesitated to use it. But these were not normal circumstances. "Prepare the Nova torpedoes," Morrison ordered. "Target the Vraxil home system star, but don't launch them yet. We'll give the Vraxil one more chance to surrender." Admiral Greg Sullivan took command of the 5th Fleet, a massive force of 40,000 ships. His orders were simple. Destroy all Vraxil forces in the Kalar Nebula. No survivors, the battle was fierce. The Vraxil fought with the desperation of a species facing extinction. They used the nebula's gas clouds for cover, ambushing human ships and using hit-and-run tactics. They damaged 30 human vessels and destroyed 2. For the Vraxil, this was a stunning victory. For the humans, it was barely a setback. "All ships maintain formation," Sullivan ordered. "Don't let them split us up." Overwhelming firepower, sustained pressure. Break their will. The battle lasted 9 hours. When it was over, the Kalar Nebula was full of debris and frozen corpses. 8,000 Vraxil bioships had been reduced to less than 300. The survivors fled in all directions, their formation completely broken. "Launch the Nova torpedoes," Morrison ordered from the Titan's reach. "Let's send them a message they can't ignore." 6 torpedoes launched from heavy cruisers positioned at the edge of Vraxil space. Each torpedo carried enough exotic matter to destabilize a star's fusion reactions. They would take 3 weeks to reach the Vraxil home system, but once they arrived, they would trigger a supernova that would destroy everything within 5 light years. Sullivan opened a communication channel on all frequencies, broadcasting in every language the Vraxil understood. "This is Admiral Greg Sullivan of the United Earth Defense Fleet. 6 Nova torpedoes are now en route to your home system. In 3 weeks, your sun will explode. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally, power down all weapons, transmit capitulation codes, allow inspection of all remaining facilities. If you do not comply, your species dies. We don't bluff. We don't negotiate, choose. The message was broadcast continuously for the next 3 days. Human fleets maintained position, ready to intercept any Vraxil attempt to stop the torpedoes. Not that it would matter. The torpedoes were programmed to detonate if tampered with. There was no way to stop them except to surrender. On the Titan's reach, Commander Hayes sat with Admiral Morrison in her office. "Do you think they'll surrender?" he asked. "They'll surrender," Morrison said confidently. "Every species has a survival instinct. The Vraxil are aggressive, but they're not suicidal. They'll realize they've lost. And if they don't," Morrison's expression was hard, "then we'll have eliminated a species that was incompatible with civilization. Either way, the threat ends." The war was over in 37 days. A conflict that the Coalition thought would last years had been ended in just over a month. The Vraxil, who had seemed unstoppable just weeks ago, were now completely defeated. Their military was destroyed. Their industrial base was in ruins. Their home system was held hostage by weapons that could kill their sun. The Coalition Council reconvened, this time aboard the Titan's Reach at human insistence. Ambassador Kalith walked through the corridors of the massive ship with mixed feelings. Relief that the war was over. Horror at how it had ended. Fear about what came next. The meeting room was the same stark functional space as before. Admiral Kate Morrison sat at the head of the table, flanked by Commander Jack Hayes and Commander Ryan Palmer. The human officers looked tired but satisfied. They had done their job. "The Vraxil have surrendered unconditionally," Morrison began without preamble. "All remaining military forces have been disarmed. All colonies have submitted to inspection. The threat has been neutralized. What happens to them now?" asked Kalith. It was the question that had kept him awake for the past 3 nights. "They'll be relocated to a single world under human supervision," Morrison replied. "We've selected a planet with adequate resources to support their population. They'll be allowed to survive and maintain their culture, but their technology will be restricted. No starships. No weapons capable of threatening other species. No industrial capacity beyond what's needed for basic survival." "You're turning them into prisoners," Counselor Mirren said quietly. "We're ensuring they can never threaten anyone again," Palmer corrected. "The Vraxil made their choice when they committed genocide against peaceful species. Now they live with the consequences. They survive, but under supervision. Forever." Vorith leaned forward, his mandibles clicking nervously. "And if they resist this arrangement? If they try to rebuild their military? Then they're sterilized," Hayes said flatly. "We've placed monitoring stations in orbit around their new homeworld. If we detect any prohibited technology, any attempt to weaponize, any sign of aggression, we destroy them. Completely. Permanently. No second chances." The Coalition delegates sat in uncomfortable silence. Finally, Kalith spoke. "This is a harsh piece, Admiral Morrison." "Yes," Morrison agreed. "But it's a lasting one. The Vraxil will never threaten anyone again. Isn't that what you wanted when you called for help?" "We wanted the attacks to stop," Kalith said. "We wanted to survive. We didn't want genocide." "And there was no genocide," Morrison replied firmly. "The Vraxil survive. They have a world, resources, and the freedom to live their lives peacefully. What they don't have is the ability to harm others. That's not genocide. That's justice." Hayes stood and activated a holographic display showing the disposition of human forces throughout Coalition space. Thousands of ships distributed across dozens of systems. Which brings us to the next subject. Earth is formally requesting membership in the Galactic Coalition. The delegates stared at him. Forath found his voice first. "You want to join us?" "We're already here," Hayes pointed out. "Our ships are protecting your space. Our technology is superior to yours. Our military capacity exceeds your entire civilization by orders of magnitude. It makes sense to formalize the relationship." "What would membership mean?" asked Moran carefully. Morrison pulled up a document, a proposed treaty of alliance. Earth would join the Coalition as a full member species. We would integrate our military forces with yours, providing defense for all Coalition space. We would share technology and resources. In return, we get equal representation on the Coalition Council and access to your trade networks. Your military would become our military? Kalith asked. In a sense, Morrison agreed, but it's more accurate to say that we would all be part of the same military. Of course, human forces would provide the backbone of any defense, simply because we have the numbers and experience. But coalition species would be welcome to contribute as they see fit. Vorath studied the treaty document carefully. This would make us dependent on you. Earth would effectively control coalition defense policy. Earth would ensure coalition survival. Hayes corrected. Ambassador, let me be direct. The Vraxel were not a unique threat. The galaxy is a dangerous place. There are other aggressive species out there, other threats you haven't encountered yet. Without human protection, the coalition would be vulnerable. So we trade the Vraxel threat for human dominance? Moran asked. You trade uncertainty for security, Morrison said. Yes, Earth would have significant influence over military matters. But we're not conquerors. We don't want to rule the coalition. We want to protect it. There's a difference. Palmer stepped forward with another display, this one showing threat assessments from human intelligence. We've been monitoring the galactic situation since we achieved faster-than-light travel. We've identified at least 4 other aggressive species within 1,000 light-years of coalition space. 2 of them are potentially more dangerous than the Vraxel. Without adequate military protection, the coalition could face another existential threat within a decade. And Earth would protect us from these threats? Asked Kalith. Yes, Morrison said simply. That's what we do. That's what we're good at. You called for help once, we answered. Now we're offering to make sure you never have to make that call again. The coalition delegates requested time to deliberate. They withdrew to a private room and debated for 3 hours. The arguments were heated but ultimately pointless. Everyone knew what the decision had to be. When they returned, Kalith spoke for the group. The coalition accepts Earth's proposal. Welcome to the Galactic Coalition, Admiral Morrison. Morrison allowed herself a small smile. Thank you, Ambassador. You won't regret this decision. Over the following weeks, the integration process began. Human ships took up permanent positions throughout coalition space. Human officers began training coalition military forces in modern warfare techniques. Human engineers shared technology that made coalition vessels faster and more powerful. Human diplomats established embassies on every coalition world. The change was remarkable. Trade routes that had been closed due to pirate activity were now safe. Border skirmishes with minor aggressive species ended when those species realized the coalition was now backed by human military power. Scientific cooperation flourished as coalition researchers gained access to human technology. But there was also fear. Every species in the coalition now understood what humans were capable of. They had seen the destruction of Vraxel military power. They knew about the Nova weapons. They understood that humanity was not just militarily superior, but philosophically committed to total victory at any cost. 6 months after the end of the war, Ambassador Kalith stood at an observation window on Horizon's Gate, watching human patrol ships glide past the station. Ambassador Vorath joined him, both of them silent for a long moment. I can't decide if we've been saved or conquered, Vorath finally said. Both, perhaps, Kalith replied, or neither. The humans are not cruel. They don't seek to dominate for domination's sake, but they are absolutely committed to security. Their security and ours. They're terrifying. Yes, Kalith agreed, but they're terrifying on our side. That's what matters. Vorath clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Do you know what I realized? Humanity spent 10,000 years fighting itself because it had no external enemies. All that violence, all that warfare, all those weapons and tactics and strategies, they were developed through fighting each other. They turned themselves into the most dangerous species in the galaxy through internal conflict. And now they're our friends, Kalith said, or our protectors, or something in between. I wonder what they would have been like if they had known peace, Vorath mused. They wouldn't have survived, said a new voice. Admiral Morrison had approached silently. Ambassador Vorath, you asked what humanity would be like if we had known peace. The answer is we would have been destroyed by the first aggressive species we encountered. We survived because we learned to fight. We thrived because we learned to win. We became what we are because we had no choice. Do you regret it? Asked Kalith.
Being what you are?
Morrison considered the question carefully. Sometimes. War's a terrible thing even when necessary. Every human who dies in combat is a tragedy. Every ship we lose represents years of labor and resources. But regret doesn't change reality. The universe is dangerous. Someone has to be willing to fight the darkness. That's us. She gestured to the human ships patrolling outside. Every one of those vessels is crewed by volunteers. People who chose to put themselves in harm's way to protect others. That's what humanity is at its core. We fight not because we love violence, but because we love what we're protecting. The Vraxil learned that lesson, Vorath observed. Yes, Morrison agreed. And now every species in this region of space knows it too. Attack the Coalition and you face humanity. Attack innocent people and we will end you. That's not a threat. It's a promise. Khalith looked at the Admiral with newfound understanding. You're not warriors. You're guardians. We're both, Morrison replied. We're whatever we need to be to keep our friends safe. That's what you got when you called for help, ambassadors. Not allies who would stand beside you. Friends who would stand in front of you. Over the next year, human influence grew.